Hey
So,
everyone, and welcome to Prune Belly Insiders. Uh, this is a new segment, the Prune Belly Roundtable. You guys want to go around and we'll all introduce ourselves?
sure. My name is Kurt Walker. I am 50, how old am I? 55 years old. And I was born in Massachusetts and I live in Southern New Hampshire, in Deerfield, New Hampshire.
I'm Robert Newkirk, and I live in May County, New Jersey, and I'm 55 years of age.
I'm Michael Adams. I'm from New Jersey and I'm 22 years old.
My name is Sean Mulligan. I am 46 years old, living in Philadelphia, PA.
I'm Faith Davis. I'm 28 years old with Prune Belly, and I live in Ida, Michigan.
All right, so today's topic is going to be how to tell the difference between a good and a bad doctor. Who wants to start us off?
I'll start us off. So I was born in Massachusetts and brought to Children's Hospital at a couple weeks of age, spent most of the first 5 years of my life there. And then as an adult, unrelated to Prune Belly syndrome, I ended up working there for 11 years. And so what I've learned as both a patient and as an employee is that, and also my kids were born in prematurely. And so we spent a lot of time in a NICU as well with them. And so I have some information as a parent as well. And I think probably the most important thing, maybe the only thing I can say, is that how I can tell a good doctor is not afraid to ask questions, that there's no such thing as a stupid question. That a good doctor is able to listen to the patient and or the parent if the patient can't talk, if the patient is a newborn, so that the doctor can understand what's actually happening on an hour-to-hour basis in that person's home. And the third thing is being able to understand that the doctor has the ability to be able to understand that he or she does not know everything, and that he or she is open and ready and willing to learn, not only from the patient and from the parents, but also from colleagues as well. To learn information, to collect information from other physicians and care teams who have more experience, or who might have more experience working with prune belly patients.
I agree with all of that, but at the same time, it has to be I'm putting an effort out, you put an effort out, and we work together to find the solution. And you have to be able to interact with your doctor. It's not every moment you have to be serious, but you have to get your point across. And we have to pick the right doctors. The right doctors are not always the top of their class. The right doctor is the one that's willing to sit down, as the Reverend said, and talk with you and understand that there are limitations and we need to figure out how to get the best results.
Yeah, sorry about that.
As a child, I spent most of my childhood in CHOP, Children's Hospital, Pennsylvania. I had incredible doctors.
Yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of that. Another major thing, in my opinion, is compassion as well. And going back on being able to talk to your doctor, I mean, me personally, I feel like I got a lot of good doctors now. I can't say I've always had good doctors, but I believe I do now. And going back to that talking issue, I mean, my doctors, some of them anyway, give me their personal cell phone numbers to call and talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
I think listening is something that's lost on a lot of these doctors. They don't want to hear what anybody as the patient has to say. We know our bodies. We've been through a lot. So there's sometimes where we are going to have more knowledge than the doctors because we deal with this all the time. Doctors, they want to treat the diagnosis, not the patient. Just because I have prune belly doesn't mean the other thousands of cases also are the same way. You can treat prune belly, but each patient might be treated differently, even if they have the same ailments. Like I know myself, I have had 3 kidney transplants. Others have had kidney transplants. Doesn't mean our treatment's the same, but unfortunately, sometimes these doctors, they all just want to go, okay, well, you're Prune belly, you have kidney disease. This is how we're treating it. Well, that isn't always the case. So trying to find a doctor who really is going to sit there and listen and understand that it's not the diagnosis you're treating, it's the patient you're treating. That's very hard to find.
Yeah. Sean, you've had 3?
I have, yes.
Cool. I am very fortunate. I'm still working off my first one from 1983. Recently, I had to get a nephroscopy tube because the tube between the bladder and the kidney collapsed. So hopefully I'll be up at Penn very shortly to get that repaired.
Okay, right now, about 5 minutes from my house.
Yeah, that's what you were saying the last you call when I'm up there.
Yeah, I'm actually right now. I'm in Margate, so I'm gonna have to connect.
Gotcha.
I think a good thing looking for doctors, someone who is going to be very patient with you and understanding in all the details of everything that you've gone through, especially if you have to transfer to a new doctor from a retired doctor. Because especially if you're transferring from pediatrics, because a lot of the doctors that I've ran into, they're like, oh, I haven't heard of Prune belly, but like I've ran into a doctor that quickly Googled Prune belly as I was going to my exam room. And they're like, oh yeah, I've heard of Prune belly. And then I asked them, okay, well, what do you know? And then they like don't know. Like I caught them like, like they just don't know what Prune belly is. So.
And that's a doctor you should run away from.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, most doctors don't know about Prune belly. I know years ago when I was living in New Jersey and being treated by a doctor, he had said that most doctors will never treat a Prune belly patient. So it's very rare. In all the years I'm 46, I probably can honestly say I think I've only had maybe a few doctors who've ever treated other patients with Prune belly. Just because it's just how rare it is, especially in our area. It's there's some states or some cities that have more cases, it seems. But I mean, I know in Philadelphia right now, close to me, in the Philadelphia area, there's only, I know at least one other family, maybe 2 that are directly in the area that I live. So, and we don't get treated by the same doctors because I see nephrology, they see other specialties that I don't have or the need for right now. So finding a doctor who's ever even known or treated a Prune belly patient is slim to none, needle in a haystack.
Well, in my world, I got very lucky. I was treated at Children's Hospital. And when I moved into the field of EMS, I had a large pool of doctors to pull from. So a lot of the different doctors at the hospital knew about my condition and would help me find the doctors so that I could get the best treated. When I went to work for Atlantic Care, my pain management doctor is my lead doctor because she was at Children's Hospital and treated Prune belly syndrome patients. So everybody's got questions, have authority to call her, and it's been put in writing that if you have a question, this is who you contact. She'll put it in terms you understand.
Yeah,
We
it's funny
take-
how,
Will
yeah, it's very interesting because you and I were both treated the same places at CHOP. And, I'm a few years younger than you, I'm 46. One thing I always found interesting was the doctors always told each patient, it seems, you're alone, you'll never find anyone else. Yet you were treated with it. And I know for a fact that there were other children treated with Prune belly, but it was like they kept everybody away from each other. They told you, oh, you're alone, you're alone. Could you imagine if we would have connected and known there was patients out there in our own area with it? This network would have been, further along. Who knows what kind of support maybe there would have been. It's surprising that they didn't interact and say, hey, look, we have these other patients. You may benefit from meeting other people with it.
Well, also the thinking back then was a lot different than it is nowadays. Where we're more open in certain fields, back then, they really didn't pay attention. I mean, you might meet one or two other people, but you never knew their medical history. Us, this generation, we're able to talk to each other and interact in ways that was never possible before.
Very true. People, I agree. It's funny, my wife and I were just talking about that, how, even with mental health, years ago, nobody knew anybody had any issues. Now, everybody knows what medication somebody's on. So you're right. Yeah, back then it was her case. It wasn't, oh, we're dealing with this disease. It's her case. So yeah, I agree with you. It was more hush hush.
I think one of the things too that gets in the way of us being able to find each other through medical facilities or hospitals through our physicians is quite simply the law. So HIPAA requires privacy. I'm not opposed to that. I think that's actually a very good thing. What the Prune Belly Syndrome Network has tried to do over the last 20, 24, 25 years that I've been involved has been to essentially create grassroots connections, right? So getting trifolds into doctors' offices, into nephrologists' hands, into urologists' hands, into surgeons' hands, so that when a Prune Belly Syndrome patient or parent, when they come in contact with a patient or parent, then they're able to have some information that they can pass along, the website, the Facebook page, so on and so forth, so that they can find a community of support and loving care without breaking any laws, right? The doctors don't want to be able to break privacy laws, which didn't exist in the 1960s. I think what happened with me, and maybe this is the case for you, Robert and Sean as well, is that with me, it was simply that the physician I had was the chief of surgery at Children's Hospital Boston. He had been a surgeon at that time, he'd been a surgeon for 40 years. And at Children's Hospital in Boston, just like CHOP, nationally known, nationally ranked hospitals, but Prune Belly is so rare that that he literally had no idea what Prune Belly was, and he had to learn as he was going along. And I think that thank God in 2022, I think that is less true, especially in urban centers with large nationally recognized hospitals. But I certainly agree that probably in a lot of community hospitals in a lot of places around this country, and as we know now with the network around the world, we have members on all 5 populated continents now. We know that lots of folks are still being told that they have no idea what this is. A lot of moms are still being told to abort their child because the physicians don't know that Prune Belly Syndrome patients can survive. So there's still a lot of non-information out there. There's still a lot of ignorance, still a lot of education that needs to happen in the medical community. And it's like Prune Belly Syndrome, what Michael is doing, I think is doing a good job to help to communicate what this disease is and how it affects us and so on and so forth.
Thanks, Kurt. And I want to go back a little bit to where you were talking about HIPAA. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because it's happened to me. And wouldn't an option be to ask the patient whether they're okay with other Prune Belly patients reaching out to you? That way you're not breaking HIPAA. And the reason I'm saying this is because the hospital I went to has done it to me before, where I met a kid at camp when I was little who had Prune Belly Syndrome. And it got to a point where I said, look, give him my phone number, I'll give you permission and he can contact me or ask him or whatever. And it got down to where that's all they had to do was ask him whenever he was there. And we met almost, from what I know, a lot of times he was there.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely an option. And I think also too, if there's a hospital, if there's an institution that recognizes that they've seen multiple patients with Prune Belly syndrome, perfect example of this would be like diabetes, right? Pediatric diabetes. A lot of these hospitals have grassroots, parent-led chapters, if you will, that the hospital allows to have their meetings at the hospital. And they'll even advertise that they have these support groups that are connected to the hospital, when they meet, where they meet, how often they meet, how long they meet. And that is something that I would love to see more of with Prune Belly patients. Again, it's such a rare disease. It's not like pediatric diabetes, right? It's something that just is going to take that much longer to be able to create that kind of those kind of numbers.
Now, Sean, can I ask a question?
Yep, sorry, I'm here.
When you were at CHOP, did you have Dr. Duckett?
Yes, he performs several surgeries. I believe he was the one responsible for bringing down my testicles, and then also, when I was younger, I had a vesicostomy that was also done and removed. He was involved in that. He was my urologist for my first 14 years. It was until I had my first transplant at 14, and so after that point, then I was considered an adult because I was at Penn for the transplant, because CHOP wasn't doing the transplants from what I thought until I heard you had yours at CHOP. But CHOP told me they would not do a transplant for a child, and that was in 93. No, I'm sorry, 1990 for my first transplant.
Yeah, in 1983, 3 days before Thanksgiving, I had my transplant. Now, I cannot tell you if most of the crew was from University of Penn that did the surgery or they were Children's Hospital doctors. I can tell you I was done in-house at CHOP. And Dr. Duckett did multiple surgeries, rebuilding my bladder, putting things back together that was devastated from Prune Belly syndrome.
One thing I'd like what Kurt was saying with having those support groups at the hospitals. I know some areas, some cities have smaller, numbers of survivors that are out there, but some of your bigger cities, like say Philadelphia, like I know CHOP has, I'm sure, like you, myself, there's probably other patients that they've treated. If we can get something like that there at bigger hospitals, those support groups, maybe we could find other people out there with the disease. That, like I would be willing to get involved in a support group that might help younger children that are in CHOP. I'd be more than happy to do it.
Yeah.
So would I.
I believe CHOP had a gathering sometime in the late 80s of PBS patients, but I could never make it there for some reason or another. But that's
I
the
don't recall.
last I've ever heard.
Mhm. But yeah, I mean, I live about, like I was saying earlier, 5 to 10 minutes from the hospitals, Penn and CHOP. I would be more than happy to be involved in getting, the families together, because there may be more out there that don't know about the network. They don't know about the Facebook page. I came across the Facebook page by accident. I'm sitting there watching TV with my wife one night. I'm like, you know what? Everything's on Facebook, even things that shouldn't be on Facebook. So I'm like, what the heck of it? Let me check Prune Belly. I pulled it up and I was shocked to find the Prune Belly page. And that was about 10 years ago. I think I talked to Debbie through Messenger for about 2 hours. And that was the first time other than when I was on dialysis from 2000, 2002. There was a guy who had Prune Belly that was on dialysis with me. And he really didn't talk too much about it. It was like hey, you have it, I have it. This is my stomach, here's my stomach. And then that was it. He didn't really bring it up much.
Yeah, that's the same with me. One thing I can say, and this is a tremendous blessing. I mean, this is hard maybe for Faith to understand, especially, and Michael, is when I did not meet somebody else. I didn't know anybody with Prune Belly syndrome until I started thinking about wanting to have kids. And so this was around 1999, 2000. 1980, well, once I discovered that I could have kids, then I went online. So social media back in those days, before pre-Facebook, so on and so forth, there were chat groups, and there was a chat group, Prune Belly Syndrome Network. I had no idea it existed. At that time, there were only 20 members in that group, and Dan Brokus, Lynn Brokus' son, was the first person that I met when he came into Children's Hospital. I was working there. He came into Children's Hospital for an appointment. I was 36 years old when I met somebody else with Prune Belly Syndrome. And we've gone, as you probably know, we've gone from those 40 members to over 10,000 members now on all 5 continents. And that's all based on social media. It's all based on social media, which I think is just a miracle. It's amazing.
Isn't it gets together every year for a conference on Prune Belly Syndrome?
Yep. When I went to, I think, 8 conferences in a row, mostly when the kids were younger. And when I was the president, I had organized one. And we were having those conferences on East Coast, Midwest, and then West Coast in alternating years. And so I guess actually in reality, I guess I probably did miss a couple of those because I wouldn't go out to the West Coast meetings. But yeah, Chicago, Boston, Philadelphia, Florida, New York. New York was the first one that I went to. And mostly it was I was on the board and I was the president for 3 years, so I had to go. And the other years that I went it was really important, I think, from what I had heard from other parents and other PBSers, is it was important for me to show up with the kids. The kids were kind of superstars because at the time, there were only a few of us that we knew. There were only a few of us that actually were able to have children, albeit via in vitro. So yes, I don't know. I know that those conferences were going on up until and then I went to seminary in 2006, and my life got extraordinarily busy. And I know that those conferences were still going on. They're still doing fundraisers pre-pandemic, but I don't know what's happened since 2019. I don't know.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know they switched to they were at one point they were going to every 2 years, and it was alternating places. But now it sounds like it's going to be in Texas because Dr. Baker's team is in Texas.
Yes.
So instead of paying to fly her anything that she needs to bring with her and pay for her room, it's cheaper for the network.
Absolutely.
Just have it in Texas. But I gotta say, like, I went to the first time I went to a convention was in Elizabeth, New Jersey, and I believe that was 2015. And it truly was a life-changing moment for me.
Amen. Yeah.
My wife will tell you, I went from someone who never talked about prune belly, like I would say I had it, but never really went into detail, to now that's all I say. Like the best example is like being a born again Christian, as Kurt would probably understand. You go from, you never talked about it, it was, all of a sudden it's like the whole world changes, your whole outlook changes. And for me, someone who's dealt with a lot of issues on the mental health side, it really was a life-changing moment. Just being in that room with people, and also knowing that I was one of the older survivors there.
Yes. Yeah.
Frank Walker was there, so he's a little older than me, and I believe there might have been only one, maybe two other gentlemen that were older than me.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was definitely, there was a lot of emotions, laughter, tears.
Yep.
But from that moment on, it's that's my life is truly involving Prune Belly. It's Prune Belly, just talking about what I've experienced in life in general. And it's as difficult as it's been, the journey to get to this point. Let's face it, we would all be different people if we didn't experience what we experienced. So
I
it's
agree.
who I am.
Yeah.
And with everything I've been through, now that we have this, this group, everything I went through was worth it because now I get to share with other people, and I know it helps other people. It helps the children, it helps the parents. So the fact that I can give hope to even one person, it makes it all worth it.
That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Well said, John.
Sorry, sir. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, well said, Sean. That's exactly right. That was the whole point of having the conventions in the first place. I can tell you 100 stories similar to yours, all unique, all powerful, all beautiful, and that's the whole point. Point of this roundtable, really, in a nutshell, is for each of us to understand that we're not alone. That's, I think, probably the most important thing. Even if we don't share medical information, even if we don't share techniques of what's happened to our bodies or what is happening to our bodies or what we're thinking or going to need to happen to our bodies, the most important thing is that this network has allowed us, each of us individuals, to connect with one another, to recognize that we're not alone, to recognize that we do have community, that there are people in the world who know exactly what it's like to go through what we've gone through, that there are parents too. These conventions are important for our parents as well. Because it allows our parents the opportunity to share their nightmare stories and their fears that they had when we were infants and they didn't know what was going on. So yes, if you have an opportunity to go to a convention, please do that. I've lost touch with many of the folks who are planning those conventions. I probably should reconnect now that the pandemic is slowing down and see if I can get to one because they're so important, so important.
Yeah,
Speaking of,
Go ahead, Faith.
sorry, I haven't talked in a while. Speaking of the conventions, there's also conventions for the females too. The female meetups. Those happen. I think they're happening once a year. I don't know who's in charge of it. I think it's Robin. I think. I'm not sure, but
That's cool.
yeah,
But
that was good.
yeah. I've met other females like me that have prune belly, which is nice because I don't really get to.
Very nice, because for a female to survive with prune belly syndrome in and of itself is actually way more rare than a boy surviving with prune belly syndrome, and that mostly has to do with plumbing issues. But most women with prune belly syndrome die in utero. I know we have a Faith, I think you and I are both connected to a friend in Australia. She's about my age, who has prune belly syndrome, and she's been to a couple conventions, and yeah, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah, I think you're talking about Kathy.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Yeah, she's brought over some Vegemite. I tried that. It was interesting.
Yeah. No, thank you.
When I was in Texas, I at one of the conventions, Jennifer, who I believe was 30 at the time, she was there. There was another family there with a baby that was, I don't even think the baby was 1 yet. So seeing that, being involved and being there to see her and witness her holding that baby, I mean, I think everybody that filled up, everybody, just because just know how rare it is for women, especially. It's rare for all of us, but for women, like Kurt said, to see that age group, basically almost a 30-year age group, and she's holding this baby. It was definitely, definitely got choked up seeing that.
Wow.
And I think the fact that prune belly is so rare, and let's face it, not many doctors do know about this condition, it makes it that much more important to get our stories out there, to get the awareness out there. Like for just a couple examples of what I've done other than the channel, I've started a Prune Belly 5K to raise awareness and also raise money for the Prune Belly Network. And I've given speeches there on Prune Belly, and I've even talked to the old Christian school I went to, K through 12, on Prune Belly. And honestly, the fact that the public is, or at least from when I've spoken, is so engaged in this topic shows that there really is a need to get this out there.
Yeah, my wife and I, we actually did a beef and beer fundraiser a few years back. We raised just about $5,000 that went towards the organization. I have 3 videos on YouTube under Sean P. Mulligan, and that actually started Marty Sheedy. With him, he does his meetings. Not sure exactly. He has a group, Project Scissorgate, because he has arthrogryposis, but also Prune belly. So he asked myself and a few other survivors just to, quick video, 5 or so minutes about what you've been through with Prune belly. So that started it. And since then I did 2 more videos and, did the beef and beer fundraiser. My wife and I, we are going to do another fundraiser. It's just the pandemic changed everything. So once things are in the clear a little bit, we're going to look at doing another fundraiser, hopefully bigger, a bigger hall, more people. But I mean, we had about 80 prizes donated between
Awesome.
gift cards, with cash that people donated. We went out and we bought a TV to have raffled off, and it went really well.
Oh, that's great.
If you need a photographer, holler.
Okay, well, we'll definitely, next time we do it, I mean, it's not going to be far from you. It'll only be about an hour away. So definitely look forward to come down and seeing you.
Now, in my world, I've been in healthcare probably since '88. And then I moved into the fire EMS side. And I made sure that my crews knew about my prune belly syndrome. And the reason was, in case I ever went down, they knew what to do and what not to do. Now, I don't know who in the group has what they call pigeon chest. That's a deformity of the chest where the stomach muscles did not pull down the rib cage. And if you do CPR, you have a high chance of sending the bones of the rib cage through the chest, through the heart and lungs. So the best way for people like me is to be shocked.
Okay.
I know that sounds horrible, but normal CPR will probably do more damage.
Do you have pescus excavatum?
A what?
It's called pescus excavatum. It's when the chest, it's when the front of the chest breastbone goes in, and it's like it's on top of your heart a little bit.
Yeah, I believe so, because my rib cage, my sternum ends here and my ribs fold in and then out again.
Yeah, that's what I have.
Well, I'm the
Gotcha.
opposite. I have the flared ribs, so mine, kind of sticks out a little bit more. And there's other survivors that also have that. So I've actually seen both. I've seen some with the where the bone in the rib cage was kind of pushed in, and then I've seen others where it's like mine, where it actually flares out. There's like a bump in the, where the rib cage in the middle right here, and then it kind of flares out my ribs.
Gotcha. I was seeing a stretcher one time, and the patient was only around 350, and I sneezed and I blew out 4 ribs.
Oh,
Good Lord.
Oh yeah.
Well, I'm sorry. It's about 8:10, Michael. And I do need to go. I apologize for needing to leave early if you all decide to continue chatting. But this is really, really great. This is really great. And I'd be interested in doing this again. Look into getting that subscription.
Thanks.
Even if you have to get reach out to somebody who can reimburse you through the network.
Okay. And it looks like we're about to get kicked off the call anyway in about 3 minutes. So you guys feel like ending it here?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
On Facebook, Mr. Bob Iceman.
All right, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share the video. Together we can hashtag spread prune belly awareness. And I'll see you next time. I want to thank
Thank you
everyone
all.
for coming on.
Bye.
Have a good night.
nice talking to everybody.
For a long time, I seemed unique from a very early age. Asking why, feeling weak, living wondering if I am the only one.
What was I supposed to make of my limitations? How much more should I take of this situation? Can it be I am the only one?
The only one. The only one.
All throughout, I found out what love's about, leaving no doubt I'll survive, channel the drive, not deprived. Feel alive.
Do you know how it feels to be different? At times you think you are the only one who exists with the pain of not being the same. When you got brothers and sisters that don't share the same last name or share the same blood, but share the same battle. Some days are real good, some days are just a hassle. Operations to doctor visits, you are not alone. So I wrote this to let you know you don't have to be alone.
The only one.
You don't have to be
The
alone.
only one.
These days, there are ways through the haze to sing His praise. We gather here with prayers held dear, wanting to erase all pain, death, and fear. Lord, please help them see. No one seems to have heard just how this came to be. We need to spread the word.
Show the world I'm not the only one. No, no. Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord, for this community. Thank you, Lord, for the thread we share. Thank you, Lord, for this unity. Thank you, Lord, for the power of care. Thank you,
The
Lord.
Prune Belly Syndrome Network is a volunteer organization devoted to patient support and education of the medical community about this rare condition.
1 in 40,000 live births result in prune belly syndrome, and all of them have all or some of their abdominal muscles missing.
50% will not survive their second birthday.
Our goal is to change the medical profession's perception of prune belly syndrome as a hopeless condition
and to educate and promote an interest among the community to do further research into the causes of the syndrome
and more effective treatments.
www.prunebelly.org.
You can help.
Thank you, Lord, for this community. Thank you, Lord, for the thread we share. Thank you, Lord, for this unity. Thank you, Lord, for the power of care. Thank you, Lord, for showing me I'm not the only one.
If you don't know what prune belly is, please go to www.prunebelly.org